Start. All right. So Emily, Melissa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
we're excited to be here.
Yeah. So as we were chatting about earlier before we got on, I think what you guys are doing is super cool. So for, those listening at home, what inspired you guys to launch Fish Fixe? I can talk today.
Yeah. So, it was one of those things that solved a problem for us that we kind of didn't realize we had. Well, I did. I was in the seafood business for about 10 years. And after becoming a, young mom and still working full-time in our business, realized that, I'm not eating these beautiful, wonderful proteins that we're serving, the rest of the state of Texas. And I'm not feeding my family that because it's not, very convenient for me. So we, being a young mom and a nutrition major, I knew the health benefits of it. And finally, decided to find a way to do it. And once we kind of solved the problem by portioning it and having it ready and available at home, kind of shared it with Emily. And that's really where the idea first kind of rooted for Fish Fixe.
Yeah. So I was in sales, and our kids were the same age at that point, and we're just always working. And once she gave me the frozen fish, I'm like, okay, I've got 15 minutes, am I gonna make a pizza, or let's try a hand at the seafood? And that's all we had in our freezer. And we just kept eating it for a week. And I'm like, Mel, I'm going to Venmo you each week and pick this up from you because I'm eating healthy, we're cooking, it's so much fun, and feel great. And so it just kind of developed from there.
Yeah. I mean, convenience is so key. I mean, I speak with my patients about this all the time that, you can have nutrition recommendations, knowing kind of what is healthy, what's not, but, being able to put that into practice, into everyday life, which is often busy and hectic and crazy. That's really what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really was for me, as I was in the seafood business, we had, our pick of premium seafood at the warehouse that I was working at, but it still wasn't convenient enough because I had to go back there. We had to fillet it and bring it home, and how much did I really want to get, and when we kind of flipped the script on that, and it ended up, frozen portions. So I'm feeding 3 people. I need 3 portions. It was like a mental click, and it really did make it that convenient and doable, attainable. So
I love that. And so is there something that, so you guys started the company in 2017, correct?
Yes.
So is there something that you wish you had known when you were just starting out?
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this a lot, but, I think for both of us, it was really just the amount of money it was going to take to scale it as fast as we wanted to. Going into, we knew what we had was something other people really wanted or would want. We believed in our dream, but once, COVID hit, we realized how many people would want it. And I just, looking back on it, we really don't like to look back and say, oh, I wish we would have done this differently, but we really bootstrapped it in the beginning. And I wish we would have believed that we can put this everywhere and it's going to just the same way it did in COVID. I wish we could have grown that, had that same just fire in the beginning to just sell it like crazy, but we would have needed the capital. So those are the 2 things I think.
Well, yeah. And so we both had full-time jobs when we started it. And truly when she said it's bootstrapped it, I mean, we built it. We both had 2 kids under 3 at the time, working full-time. And, she was in the wine and spirits industry. I was in the seafood industry. And so the time that we had to build was really, once the kids were asleep, or, you're waking up early or staying up late. And we really, we believed in it, but we weren't sure the concept had been proven. This is pre, meal delivery. This is right when HelloFresh and all these companies are starting, and, they're heavily funded and they're doing all these, incentives to get people to buy. And we just weren't sure of customer adoption. And looking back, we're like, man, this was a thing. We really were there when, before it became a thing. And I think that's the one.
We wish we would have known that online grocery shopping would have become the way a lot of households shop.
Yeah.
Because it was still really unique when we started. Yeah. And so we just kind of tiptoed into it and just bootstrapped it. And we're this is great. But looking back on it, it's if we just knew that 2 years after we started, the whole world was
Shut down.
going to be shopping online, and that online seafood purchasing wasn't going to be that weird. I think we would have just gone out and raised more capital. We would have just really gone crazy with it to start with.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And to your point, like, I feel like now online growth, like, I feel like a few years ago, because I, in a past life, I worked a lot in corporate wellness, where I was talking to people who are traveling all the time, but they still want to eat healthy when they were on the road. And then when they got home, and, I was like, how about online grocery shopping? And they were like, I don't know, that's so weird. I like to, and now, like, people who don't work, like, do online grocery shopping, it's a whole different ballgame. But during the pandemic, I mean, I was living in New York City. My husband and I, we had just gotten engaged like the month before everything shut down. And he had just moved into my studio apartment with his 2 cats. And we were like going to just kind of, do that till we found a bigger place. And then like everything shut down a month later. And I remember just looking for like grocery shopping was so stressful, and it was so hard to get online deliveries. But those subscription services were so helpful. Like, I definitely signed up for a few that were, but probably a little different than what I would choose now just because of what was available. But I remember that good seafood was really hard to come by for a few months. It was really, it was bizarre. It's something I'd never thought of before. And then because of the pandemic, it was like something I had to become more conscious of, like actually seeking it out.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was a lot of people's mindset, like, oh, seafood it's kind of weird to order over the computer. I don't know what I get. And then it just became really common that people could get high quality proteins, or, people were specializing in these things. And so, COVID itself and that whole time was a really cool growth period for us.
Yeah.
Curious to hear, from a business side, did you find that the pandemic was helpful to your business, or was it, but I imagine there are probably also things going on like supply chain issues, and I would love to hear though, just about what the experience was like during COVID for your business, and kind of what happened through that time.
Yeah. I mean, it was really great. It was truly a blessing in disguise from a business side for us, because not only, I mean, yes, it was, logistics were crazy. I mean, just with our freight coming in, and then, getting things to people's houses, that the supply chain was experiencing like crazy, like, growth. And I mean, they just couldn't handle it. So we did have some issues, but it was so cool because we were solving a problem for people. I mean, we would get these beautiful emails and they'd say, thank you guys so much. Like, we haven't had a good, like, quality, like, protein or seafood meal in so long. And what you guys are doing is great. And it was like, it was proof of concept to some point for us. And it was also, we kind of got to see on like a larger scale, like, how much our business could bless people just from simply providing access to people, like, whether in a food desert or in a highly populated city that is completely shut down. That was really cool. And I think really kind of helped us turn the corner from the fact that, like, okay, this is a great little hobby that we're building and we're helping these people, but now, this is a very legitimate business that we could grow and scale and help more people.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, I think it was, a lot of people relied on restaurants for their seafood proteins. I mean, I think people still do because they're a little bit intimidated by it, but people just were like, we're going to be here for a while, so let's take a chance. Let's, they might have found out about us from a friend and they just started cooking, and I think a lot of people took up baking and cooking. And it was really cool to be a part of people's experience, like during this time when they're like, I just taught myself how to cook scallops at home. It just, whatever like little bit of sunshine we could be to people during that time, and hearing that customer feedback. And a lot of them are still customers. We kind of think that, like, going into it, we might have been more of like a luxury to some people. They would have said, I can get this at the grocery store, I can go do this, or I'm going to eat at the restaurant. And then coming on the other side of it, they realize, like, this is the way I'm going to purchase seafood forever, because it's trustworthy and reliable, and I know what I'm getting.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like frozen seafood, so much of the fresh seafood we buy has been previously frozen anyway. Like, when I tell people that, they're like, really? Like, oh, like, frozen seafood doesn't sound that weird anymore. But I'm fascinated by the idea that seafood is hard to cook, because I don't know. chicken for me is like the hardest thing to master. Like you put a piece of fish like in the oven or in a pan, you sear it, it's done. Like with chicken, there's so much that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And I find it so interesting when people share that they're intimidated by cooking fish. I'm like, just try it. Trust me, it's so easy.
But it really is. It's one of, like, when we first started, like, okay, well, we would ask our friends and family, like, do you cook seafood at home? They're like, no, not really. Like maybe shrimp every now and then. And we'd ask them why. And they're like, well, I don't know how to cook it. I'm like, do you like it? Well, yeah. Anytime I go out to eat, that's what I order because I don't know how to cook it at home. But that really came out to like, they didn't really know how to purchase it, or they were just, the whole thing was intimidating to them, and I like chicken. I hate chicken. I hate touching chicken. I hate cooking chicken. I'm always, is it done? Is it not done? I'm not like, I can take one piece of fish and make it taste like 10 different things, and I'm confident in the way it's cooked. But before Fish Fixe, that wasn't the case. No, because I never would touch anything in the kitchen because chicken was the option. I don't like chicken. Well, that's been really cool. I mean, that's really what our mission, it's one, help people purchase the seafood, because that is a stumbling block for sure. They're confused at the grocery store counter. They're confused online by some of, the other services that are it's just overwhelming. And then once they get it to their house, we have to teach them just simple method. I mean, a simple sear. I mean, a good piece of seafood, salt and pepper in a hot pan, you can do a great job. Yeah, that's all you need. That's all you really need. And so that's kind of like our whole, as when we get into marketing and like how we connect with our customers, just giving them those tools and the confidence to do it, which is something I think that we do a lot differently than some of the other people out there. So.
Yeah, I mean, your website has tons of recipes. It's so user-friendly. Like, I think that's, so giving someone the tools, but then, showing them how to put that into practice in everyday life is just so helpful.
Yeah. And that's what we hope to continue to really invest a lot of time into. Once we developed our store and our shop, our whole focus this past year has been on what we call it's our Fish Fixe kitchen. Melissa's our chef there. And our goal is just to give everyone resources, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, kind of trying on TikTok, anywhere that they want to find us, try and show them how simple it is to cook. We can have like really advanced recipes or really simple ones. We had a lot of cool recipes from our Fish Fixe family too. So, but it's just showing them how easy it is.
Yeah. And something you guys mentioned earlier, when you were just starting the company about, working full time, having young kids. And I would love to hear just sort of what that experience was like for you. And just, because I know a lot of my listeners, readers are people who, they have their, not maybe their day job, and then that passion that they're doing, or they're trying to find their way in terms of, they're really busy, but they want to be incorporating healthy habits and feeling their best. And I'm just curious, any advice that you guys would offer for someone who's juggling a full-time career and launching a business on the side?
Absolutely. Because I mean, I did it for 4 years and Mel did it for about 3, I think. And I mean, look, like you got to believe in what you're doing and make it worth that extra time you're going to sacrifice. And we knew what we had, like I wouldn't say like fell in our lap, but once we this idea, we had to do it. It just became something that we were going to seek out every day and every night. And the best piece of advice that we really both received was, like, if you're going to make this happen, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, right? But it wasn't going to be family, and it wasn't going to be our health, and it wasn't going to be, our main time, our main job. And so it was, you're going to have to make your own sacrifices. So that might mean skipping that dinner party with friends, or staying up late, or waking up early. And our families really understood that. It was like tag teaming on different projects. Hey, I've got this going on this weekend. It's okay. I'll take it all, and vice versa. But it's really just those sacrifices that you have to make. And, I mean, does that make sense? It's like, if you're going to do it, if you're going to go for it, you've got to make those sacrifices, and it's going to pay off as long as you don't, lose the vision. And very tiring, but
trying to remember the question.
It was, would you do any of it?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think you did a good job. I mean, it's funny because when you're in it, you don't think about, you just do, right? Like you're, okay, well, we need to build a website. Okay, well, we don't have any money to do that. So what do we have? We have time. Okay. So when do we have time? We have time when our kids are sleeping, or we're not doing our other job, or coaching a team, or whatever it is. And when your heart is passionate about something, you find the time. And I think that's what we did, but protecting that family time and make sure you don't throw your whole life out of balance. I think we did that. And
it's just like, really, if it's your thing you're going for, where can you make your own sacrifices that don't, harm your family life or your full-time job? And that might be spending an entire Sunday working when everyone else is at the park. That might mean skipping some birthday parties, or whatever you have to do, but just don't lose focus on that vision. And one day your friend will put an application in for Shark Tank behind your back, and you'll have to pursue that vision full time.
Yeah. So what about, and I've over the years interviewed a huge number of female founders and, people who are in business with a friend. And, is there any tips that you would share for launching a business with a friend, or things that, you learned along the way that you found really helpful?
I'll start, I guess. Well, I think one thing, obviously, like, we talked about, like, when you go into business together, it's not just us, it's our whole family. So it's our husbands, it's our kids, it's a total family affair. And so we were aligned, like our morals, like everything, we're very aligned, but we're also very opposite of each other we'll do a sports analogy, since we both played soccer together in college. I was the forward. So I'm like 100 miles an hour. We got to score a goal. If we're not going forward, we're going backwards. We push. And Emily is like your classic defender. Like, if we have an idea presented, she's like, okay, well, what about this, and this, and who's got the goal? And like, did you check the insurance policy? Like, I mean, her brain just is a complete check to mine. And so we laugh, or like, we end up meeting at midfield a lot of times, because, she's what Laura says, Emily's the brake to my gas, my lead foot. So I think that is key. And then early on, when we were starting and our schedules were so opposite, she was working full time in the beverage industry. And then we had our wholesale company. I had a little more flexibility, because, it was our company, although, flexibility is a relative term. But for me, it was like respecting time. Like, there were times I'd wake up and I've been at it since 4 a.m. doing a website, and I'm calling Emily. I can't wait to tell her something. And she's like,
well, hey, I'm working on sales goals at the end of month.
She's like, I cannot talk right now. And I would check myself. I'm like, dang, like, I want her to be there. I want her to be sharing in this right now. But, I have to check myself, because that, I have to respect her time and the thing that she has going on. So I think over the last 4.5 years, we've gotten a lot better at like, hey, like, she'll call me. I'm like, I think I'm going to go work out.
And I'm like, go work out. Cause we need that space. We need that healthy energy and take care of yourself. So I just think, like, finding a partner, if it's a friend, making sure you truly are on the same page, and that your families are on the same page, and that you complement each other, because we are drastically different, but that's what works, especially when you have a small team, because there's two of you, and then you add in the cool spice in between. And but I think it's just that communication. You have, like, it's gonna be your business partner. You're gonna have to have hard conversations, and it's a lot like, you're talking to them almost as much as you're talking to your spouse. Like, if you can't talk, or you can't respect each other's time, or differences, it can get really tough. So I would say, that finding a partner that you trust, open communication, and then that complements you well. Getting done.
Love that. So you actually led me to another question I had for you guys, and that was about self-care, because this is something that, especially if you are nurturing a business, something that is for some people can easily fall by the wayside, and how we're caring for ourselves can also have a big impact on the health of our business. And I'm curious to hear about, for you, is there anything that you have found to be self-care non-negotiables for yourselves, or anything you've learned about self-care in the process of growing Fish Fixe?
Yeah, I mean, I would, for both of us, it's definitely making time to work out, whether that is a long walk outside or the gym. We had a moment where, I mean, for like 3 months, we were working every waking hour, sitting at the computer. And for the first time, and I can't remember how long, we weren't able to go to the gym. We both had like weird aches and pains,
stomach issues,
really
like
hard.
all kinds of weird.
And so from that moment on, we just said, look, like we have busy home lives, we have a busy, career here, and we're running a business. If that means like you didn't have time to work out this morning before work, if you want to hit that 10 o'clock class, I will cover for you. Like it is a non-negotiable for us to hit some sort of workout, because I mean, it takes care of all parts of your body, and it just makes like the day, if you go, it's mental health, it's physical, it's everything.
Yeah. There was a point when we aired on Shark Tank last November, I mean, we were not prepared from a customer. We had a lot of issues, logistical issues. We won't go into all that, but the customer service, the toll, the emotional stress, and the just the physical labor. I mean, yeah. I'm at CVS buying like a brace for my arm because we're typing all day, and then it's I mean, all these weird ailments, like stomach issues, and it was because we weren't making time at all. And since I mean, we kind of got through that, and on the other side of it, it's like, okay, we can't go back to that place because it's just not long-term health.
Well, and I think like at the root of it, the reason we started the company was because we wanted to spend more time with our families. We wanted to, create a company where we could work in and give ourselves more time in the kitchen to be able to like sit down with our families for dinner. And so like those are our two non-negotiables, is that family time and making it a priority to work out. And we'll cover each other, we'll change meetings around, whatever that is. If it's a long walk, hey, none of us got to work out today, okay, let's have that meeting on a walk or something. It's just it's so important.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. And to your point, exercise is really good medicine. It's like, it's good for the mind, good for the body. And it's, even a little bit goes a long way. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I would love, I know we were talking a little bit earlier about how fish actually is pretty easy to prepare, once you get over the intimidation factor. And I love, by the way, that the way that your products are packaged is in single serving fillets for the most part. It just takes so much of the guesswork out of it. But I always like asking founders of food related companies, what are some of your favorite items that you guys sell?
Man, it changes for me.
It's like when they ask, what's your favorite kid?
Yeah.
It depends on which one. It depends on which one's behaving.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say I have two.
Let me guess.
What?
Kobe.
Okay. I mean, sashimi grade.
And salmon.
Yes.
I would say. Yeah, I would say.
She always, when she sees my order, she's like,
diversify. Remember, we're about diversity of seafood consumption. So you need to not just put.
I mean, I love it all, but I can eat salmon all the time. And my kids usually end up taking the majority of my food. So salmon and Kobe are probably my top two.
Yeah. Scallops for me, I mean, they're just the easiest, just from the health, loaded protein and all the other vitamins and minerals in them. I love scallops so much. But yeah, I mean, I love any of our whitefish, black drum, snapper. I love it all.
She asked for us.
I would say I just love scallops. They're just love them.
Yeah. And those are one of my favorite, I love it all, but I will say scallops, when I was living in New York, working 7 days a week, I would always make scallops when I wanted something that felt fancy, but was in reality, it was ready in 5 minutes.
So that's one of the ones that really has been when people actually try it and they're like, wow, that was so much easier than I thought it would be. And they're just blown away. And yes, and it's ready in like 4 minutes. So
it's definitely, we've heard back from most of our customers, and I would put me in that category as well, that, you know, even like not used to cooking seafood at all. And we have one of our boxes we curate, and when we put scallops in it and people just cook them at home for the first time, they have so much confidence that they can cook anything now. It's like, if I can make like, for whatever reason, everyone, you know, just thinks they're fancy or they're for restaurants. And so it is really cool. That's a great product.
Yeah. It's like a good, like, aha moment kind of product. I love that.
And people, I feel like people always tag us or post, you know, like when they do that, they're like, look what I made. Cause it's like the fancy dinner, you know, and it has to be on their,
I mean, think about it. It's
on
like
on their Instagram.
If you're like a young adult and you made scallops and your friends came over, like, did you just make this?
Yeah.
It's like, yes. And it only took me 5 minutes.
That's cool.
So.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So a question I like to ask everybody who's on here is, you know, because I'm all about the little tweaks, the little game changers, if that's, you know, small changes. And I would love to hear from each of you, you know, what's a practice, a product, or a service that's been a game changer for you in regards to your well-being over the past year?
A practice, a product, or a service. Well, Fish Fixe has really, no, I'm just kidding. I don't do you have, what are you thinking about?
I mean, you've done some stuff for your gut.
Oh yeah. I was having, is this too much on, do you want to talk about my gut issues? Is that appropriate for this call?
I talk about gut stuff all day, every day.
I know you do. I mean, in January this year, I had like a major, like, just extended, like I was so out of whack with my gut. And anyway, I went through some testing with one of these like naturopathic doctors, and I ended up having SIBO, pretty bad, the methane one, which is pretty hard to get rid of. So one of the things that they like in all my reading is when you like eating, like slowly, because I don't do anything slow. Everything I do
don't do anything.
I know, but like, even I'm just eating, you know, and it's not like, so the practice is, you know, make the meal and sit down and consume the meal, like with a timer of not, you know, doing that in 2 minutes. It's where you're actually able to digest the food. So that's something I've been trying to do now that the kids are back in school. It's just to take time to actually, you know, go through that process of sitting and eating instead of shoving food into my mouth as fast as possible. And that, along with some dietary changes, have really made a huge difference in my belly, my biome.
I would say a practice for me is working out before my kids get up, making that a priority. So like when I changed from corporate life, I was staying up late. I was working all day, and then I was staying up late, sacrificing my own time. And I just made the switch to going to bed early. And I get up most mornings at 4:30. I have a gym across the street from my house that I love dearly. And I'll get my workout in before, you know, my kids wake up, and then get back, and I'm able to not feel that pressure of doing something that I could be missing out on their time, or, you know, work or something. So that's made some major changes. And we've always both like been early risers, but it was like what I was doing with that time. And, for me, it's definitely the working out first thing in the morning, making sure I get it in, and then like whatever happens the rest of the day, I have one thing checked off my list. So
yeah, no, that doing that one thing for yourself is magic. Especially if you have a lot of demands on you later in the day.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have one?
Oh gosh. I mean, I will say for me, you know, over the past year, I cut my caffeine intake. Like I at one point in my life was drinking, like in my 20s, I was drinking like 8 cups of coffee a day when I was an intern in the hospital. And then when I turned 30, you know, I started having heart palpitations. I was like, oh, it's just work stress. And I saw my doctor. She's like, so how much coffee are you drinking? And I was like, all right, I'll cut back to 4 cups a day. Yeah. Almost, I don't know, 6, 7 years later, I I finally, I did a cortisol test and my levels were like, did not go down all day because I was having some health issues that I knew probably had something to do with cortisol. So I was like, let's see what happens if I don't drink coffee. And at that point, I was only drinking like maybe two cups a day. But I will say I switched to green tea, and matcha is like kind of the biggest thing that I'll do. And that made such a difference for me. I was like, I don't know. I rolled my eyes at, people were like, oh, like I gave up coffee and I felt so much better. I was like, yeah, whatever. But I have to admit, like it's been really helpful.
Yeah, I bet. I mean,
I don't know.
Is this a sign, Emily, that you should, no, just kidding.
Yeah, but we're all so different too. Like every person has like so many things, like so many factors, like so many things that are going on in their mind and their body. And I think for me, I've just been like still just detoxing from New York City. It's just like that hustle culture, I will say, where everything is on all the time. So I think for me, I needed to do something drastic, like limit caffeine to just like come back down to earth. Cause I'm a Sagittarius. Like I was, I'm like, I wake up on fire, it's just, I have two speeds, like on and asleep.
Yeah.
So.
That's so funny.
I'm Sagittarius too, and those are definitely my two speeds.
Where are you now? Are you not in New York anymore?
So I'm in Jersey. So not far from New York, but I just we wanted space, and I work out here, so I like all the nature. I think that also helps a lot, like being in more green space. I know we've been out here for almost 2 years, which is crazy, but just having more greenery and stuff is just so nice.
Yeah, that stress. I mean, it's not good.
And so a question that I ask everybody who comes on here, also another question, the title of this podcast is Drama-Free Healthy Living, which, it's a title that's kind of been here since the beginning. And it's just interesting how that has evolved in so many ways, because it started in a pre-COVID world and it's, a lot has changed. But I always like to ask everybody who comes on here, because there's just so many ways to interpret this. What does healthy living mean to you?
I'll go. I'd say for me, it's balance, and I don't believe that balance has to be equal in any way. It's like when it comes to food, not being restrictive. It's like, if you find the balance that works for you, like you just said, like it's not for everyone, like giving up caffeine isn't for everyone, but once it's the right thing for you, like it makes total sense, and I think that becomes between like work and play and, a lot of it goes back to food for me. Like, I think that, like loving your, like being happy with yourself has a lot to do with like how you feel towards your food and the balance that you're given. It's like, we generally finish every meal with something a little sweet, or, have the glass of wine. If you've worked hard and you want the glass of wine, don't restrict yourself. So I think it's about finding that balance that works for you.
You went first, so you could say balance, and now I don't have anything to say. No, what does healthy living mean to me, right? That's I think it's like kind of I don't know, it's like a state of being. Like it's your spiritual, your emotional, and physical health, like just being in a place where you're not so hard on yourself and, analyzing and criticizing all the things you did and didn't do, or ate and didn't get to eat. So I don't, and not to put too much thought into it. Like I try to just put as much nourishing, green, healthy things into my body as possible without like really overthinking it, because I think that's when I, start to get critical and compare, what you ate in a day to some influencer that, spent all day planning it out.
Right.
Putting enough thought into it to make sure you're making good choices, but not overthinking it to where you're, it's consuming you. So.
Amazing. I love that. And I know the influencer, like, oh gosh, like it is wild. And I have to tell people this all the time. I'm like, that's not real life.
Yeah.
Like, so it's curated. It's, as you said, well thought out. Like, not something we should be comparing ourselves to, but it's so pervasive. It's
it really is.
Thing.
Well, I bet it's particularly hard for you too, because you are trained in the world of nutrition, and you see so much misinformation out there. And I mean, I can imagine, it's like when we see something about fish, we're like, it's not really, it's a pretty infographic, but not really accurate. So it's frustrating, I can imagine it's really hard for you.
Oh my gosh. It's a very interesting world. The internet is like the wild west of health information. It is just so unregulated, and it's not always easy for, consumers to tell what's reliable, what's not. And I spend a lot of my day myth busting.
Yeah.
A lot. It's really, and just continuing to show up and provide evidence-based recommendations, and just kind of be it's a lot of where the drama-free healthy living came from, is just wanting to just show up and be like, calm, reasonable about this stuff.
Yeah.
But thank you guys both so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed hearing about your experience. And if people want to connect with you and learn more about Fish Fixe, place an order, how can they do so?
Yes. So our website, you can find us there at www.fishfixe.com. Most of the time you can find us on Instagram at fish.fixe with the E on the end. You can find us on all the different platforms. We're trying to be on TikTok, but we're getting close to 40. So
it's hard. It is so hard.
But yeah, I would say Instagram and our website are the two best places to find us. And you can find Mel on YouTube at the Fish Fixe Kitchen.
There's like 3 videos, so I wouldn't waste your time. But I think you said www.fishfixe.
That's our website. Whatever.
And we'll be sure to link to stuff in the show notes, so if people want to come check it out, they can easily do so. But thank you, Emily and Melissa. It was so nice to speak with you today.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right. And all you guys listening at home on your devices, after you're out for a walk, driving, whatever, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you like what you hear, please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. They really do matter. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day. We'll talk soon.